I was probably 26 or 27 at the time. And I thought, do you know what? I could do that. Like, I could be the real person that's showing people what it's like to train with having your own businesses. And but I ended up vlogging about quite serious things like depression and eating disorders. So really quickly, it's like, nah, I'd rather watch the 19-year-old from America with an 8-pack instead of the Scottish guy from Glasgow talking about depression. So I just decided to start filming other people. I didn't realize that it was borderline useless what I was doing at the time, but I do now, looking back. You know, that one of my favorite things from Jim Rohn is he says education beats motivation, because if you take an idiot and motivate him, now you've got a motivated idiot. But if you take an idiot and educate him, he's no longer an idiot.
So much, everyone, for tuning in for another episode. Today it's a little bit different, and over the next few weeks you're going to be seeing some little bit of a different version of this podcast. It's going to be really about having conversations with people who are inspirational, who have businesses or are doing different things. And the idea behind this is I just want to start having conversations with people about things that I just don't think that are being spoken about enough, that will bring value to you. So although the fitness content will still be here, we're going to make a little bit of a pivot. So today I have Gus. I've known Gus Napper for God.
Oh man, you full named me. You actually full named me. Oh.
Yeah. Well, you know,
that's the celebrity status gone already, dude.
Yeah. Well, look, we've got Gus here, RGL Filmhouse. If you haven't heard of that, you definitely will have. If you are in the fitness industry, I mean, I'm gonna list out a few of the it's like accomplishments on his CV, because he is a humble dude, and I know that he will not. So if you haven't heard of RGL, he's worked with the brands of like Optimum Nutrition, Cytec, PE Science, Ryderwear, Vanquish, Gymshark. I mean, those are just the big brands. And then people, influencers, the names of, you know, Flex Lewis, Steve Cook, Jordan Peters, Ryan Terry, Lex Griffin, Mark Coles, Eddie Hall. His CV.
Don't forget Paige Hathaway and Joey Swoll. You should have led with those, bro.
There we go. Exactly. And that's and this is what I mean. You know, your kind of CV is a smorgasbord of who's who in the fitness industry. So I wanted to get you on because we've known each other from day dot. You know, we were speaking about this off camera, off microphone before this, and it's been a real interesting thing. You know, you picked up a camera in 2014.
I think the first time I decided that the world might want to hear what I've got to say probably was 2014, 2015, bouncing around doing the kind of vlogging of training and nutrition. And realized very quickly that nobody gave a fuck what a Scottish guy who wasn't in shape had to say about fitness. So pivot, film other people.
Yeah. And I think it was a really interesting story how we met as well, or how we came to know each other. I was competing back then, as everyone did back in the day. And you know, we got talking, you just started filming other people, and we were looking to go and film. I'm not even sure why that didn't happen, because I remember we were, you know, really bouncing off each other, and we've connected, and obviously ever since then stayed in touch and been on each other's radars. So talk to me a little bit about kind of what you did. You know, what was the 2014 version of you? How did that develop? And then, you know, kind of bring it on to where we are now today.
Cool. Well, firstly, thank you for the introduction, dude. It has been a joy to be bouncing off each other for it. We are day dot people, and we have no idea why we're fucking day dot. Yeah. We just know that we were day dot. This is back in the days when Instagram was like Valencia filter X Pro, and that was it. That's all you could post. Video was only 15 seconds, and it had big black lines along the top of it. So yeah, it's interesting times, mate. Well, to answer your question in a bit of a tangible timeline fashion, back in the day, I was probably the same as anybody that had just found the gym, like thinking that in my own head, thinking that I was the main character in my own movie and going to the gym with the hood up and yeah, man, I'm moving weight and all this kind of crap. But like most people, I was consuming a hell of a lot of YouTube content, motivational, air quotes, motivational YouTube content. Um, and consuming certain things from YouTubers just gave me the idea. I'm sure it was 2014, might have been 2015. I was probably 26 or 27 at the time. And I thought, do you know what? I could do that. Like, I could be the real person that's showing people what it's like to train with having your own businesses. And, but I ended up vlogging about quite serious things like depression and eating disorders. So really quickly, it's like, nah, I'd rather watch the 19-year-old from America with an 8-pack instead of the Scottish guy from Glasgow talking about depression. So I just decided to start filming other people. I didn't realize that it was borderline useless what I was doing at the time, but I do now looking back, you know, that one of my favorite things from Jim Rohn is he says education beats motivation, because if you take an idiot and motivate him, now you've got a motivated idiot. But if you take an idiot and educate him, he's no longer an idiot. Yeah. So pivoting to kind of shooting other people, it was a bit of a dream of mine, like living my whole life in defense mode or a relative kind of isolation, a lot of anxiety fueled living. I was never really allowed to have my own childhood or my own shit. It's like looking at it from the outside because you're not having the chance to enjoy things. So shooting other people became like this physical manifestation of how I emotionally already viewed the world, like through a lens, everybody's part of their own movie and all this kind of stuff. And yeah, 2015, I probably only lasted about 6 months of doing it as a quote unquote side hustle, filming people from the local gym, starting to get on Instagram a little bit. As I say, this is back when stuff was 15-second videos and you had to put it through an app to actually get it in a square format for Instagram. So then it left you with the big massive black boxes top and bottom. But yeah, lasted 6 months of just kind of doing some stuff, and very, very quickly got on the radar of educators, people like Mark Coles and Phil Learney and all these kind of guys, and took it full time after 6 months. Managed to land Gymshark in my first year of business. They slid into my DMs and they're like, "Hey man, do you fancy doing some shoots?" And I was like, oh my god, what do I do?
Stay calm.
Yeah. And that was it. I always with the people that I coach now, sorry, just to kind of finish off that timeline, is videography for probably 6 years. In the range of 6 years. Obviously we've had lockdowns in the middle of that, but coming out of lockdown made a complete evolution of the business to education and coaching. So I don't even shoot anymore unless there's a big invoice attached to it or they're going to send me abroad, and I'm not ashamed to say that's quite a good position to be in. So now with coaching, with one-to-one coaching, for business coaching for photographers and videographers, workshops, all these things, I always find myself reminding the guys of how weird things were for me at the start, but it was also kind of luck and stars aligning, because I was one of only like 3 or 4 people in the UK that were doing it at the time. So who else are Gymshark going to come to? And I'm not trying to discredit myself, but when you are good, but you're only one of 3 or 4 people in the country, there's very limited options, and video was only just starting to get proven as the king of content then. The exact point is Instagram was 15 seconds. Now it's almost unlimited. So if you ever want to know what the evolutions creators have to go through, just look at the evolutions social media platforms have gone through. So timeline, that brings us to where we are now. I've finished my first probably 13, 14 months of business coaching for creators. Absolutely blown away with how well it's done. trying my best to change an industry, trying my best to give support. It's like the old saying, be who you were, be who you needed when you were younger.
Mm-hmm.
And that, like, every time I hear that, it almost makes me cry, because I needed a lot when I was younger and never ever got it. So there's kind of an element of like wounded healer about me, where I'm like, no, my mission is to make sure that every one of these kids doesn't get ripped to shreds by their clients, to make sure that we not revolutionize, but evolve the standards of what content is being delivered, evolve the business perception and how creators conduct themselves to gain respect from their clients, and show you guys as well, show trainers, educators that need to hire content creators that, you better stop worrying about the word free, because it ain't going to happen ever again. The more creators that I get my hands on. And that's it. It's the education that the industry's never had until now. But I think a key with me is I don't shoot for the stars when it's like, oh, become a filmmaker in 14 days, or give me £5,000 for my mastermind. I'm like, no, I'm cool bouncing at the middle ground with all my one-to-one guys, my online library, my workshops, because that's where the graft is done. That's where the work is done, if you know what I mean. Like, if you look at your business, and you could imagine your first 3 years were in 10 years, you could say your first 3 years were horrific. Your middle 5 years were amazing, but you still had your sleeves rolled up. And then now your last maybe 2 or 3 years have been so evolving, but there's an element of you probably had your feet up, because you've got 7 years of experience behind you, and you're like, yeah, I can just make one decision easily now. I don't have the anxiety or the issues that I used to have. So yeah, for me, it's about getting that middle ground, that 80% of creator that is used every day, shoots every day, small business owner, works with small business owner, and making sure those guys are creating a whole new standard of not just creativity, but professionalism, entrepreneurship, communication, you name it. So that brings us to today, my dude.
Yeah, it's been phenomenal. And I think, like you said, back then it was so, like, the industry was just so different. It was so fresh. Social media was so different. And
it's because we were all naive.
Yeah.
Like, I always remind people that we are part of our own evolutions. And if you think an idea we probably all had, like when I was young, I was a bit of a skater, and then I was a boy racer as well. And when you change your arena and you're no longer exposed to those things, you think they've died out, but they probably haven't. They've probably excelled beyond your belief. It's just that they're not on your radar anymore. So we, having egos as humans, we're like, oh yeah, skating's not even a thing anymore. No one does it. And you're like, no, it's just that you don't do it. And so everyone else still does it. You don't. So when it comes to talking about like back in the day with the industry, is that back then we had maybe half a dozen like OG gods that we would look up to on Instagram. And now I've worked with all of them and they've all been my clients. Now we are kind of in the, not OG status, but we're in the place that they were to us 7 years ago, 8 years ago. And now all the new people that are starting are looking at us the way that we would look at the previous kind of OGs or the previous founders. So it's interesting when we see these things. It's like, oh, it's all kind of different now, isn't it? It's like, no, we're just 7 years further ahead. It's the exact same as it was. People have still got the same fame and ideology around people that we had, except now kind of we're those people that have got that, the newest guys have got the ideology around.
And I think you're right, really. I think it is naivete because, the further you go into any industry.
Oh, I love it when someone says naivety in a French way, dude. That was so nice. Naivete. Naivete.
And it is, because the further you get into any industry, you suddenly realize no matter how big it is, it's so small.
Oh,
the same people know each other. Everybody knows everybody. It's run by a few select individuals that know and control everything. And I guess you're right, because it just means that now we've kind of rubbed shoulders with those people and we know those people, and some of those are our friends and business acquaintance and Yeah, it's bizarre when I look back at things now, and
Crazy, isn't it?
go back
Crazy.
to 2014, me and you, and just talk about competing for me was so big back then. Like, my only focus was, right, I'm going to compete, I'm going to get that pro card status, like the stereotypical journey. And yeah, I'm going to get some, like, I'm going to do some photo shoots, videos, I'm going to like put content out there, and I'm just going to do this and this, and kind of follow that, as yourself, that I was the main character in my own story, and to a certain degree I am now, but it's just changed, and the focus has changed.
So
Yeah.
there's something that will, to give a little bit of context in me, as I understand, I maybe talk different than a few human beings, because I worry when I talk, people are like, what is this guy on? But the kind of emotional development and spiritual communities are massive in my life outside of RGL Filmhouse and coaching and stuff. So I've got men's groups, like support meetings, all these different kind of things. And my close circle as well is filled with kind of spiritual professionals and coaches, that kind of thing. So this is part of who I am. This is the way I talk. So if people are ever listening going, bro, I was really wanting to learn about the new pyramid scheme, and you're here talking about spiritual development, there's a reason.
Yeah.
But what a really interesting thing, and I give this to a lot of, not give this, sorry, I offer this to a lot of my one-to-one guys, is to remind them of their overall kind of place in the world and how beautiful it is, because it's following a necessary evolution. And there was something, what was it? There was a line from that Netflix special with Ricky Gervais, Afterlife. And the woman said something like, selflessness is old men planting trees which they know they will never sit in the shade of. So there's an element of us knowing that we've done the trench work, we've rolled up our sleeves, we've been doing it for, the best part of a decade, double that between us. And now with the kind of education and the support factor, it's important to check our egos and remember that we are at the stage where we're supposed to be supporting and not taking as much. On the way up, you're quite hungry, you're clawing at everything. There's a lot of naivety in there, a lot of ego, and you're like, I'm going to smash this, I'm going to smash this, I'm going to smash this. And then when you start realizing that I'm ticking off all these goals, you start to earn a little bit more peace and a little bit more self-love and self-respect. And then you realize how valuable your evolution is. So then you turn to support, you turn to education, and you know that you're doing it from, yes, a pivotal business standpoint. But I love the idea of looking back on something that you helped build and now going, I'm going to give myself to continue the construction of that for everybody else that's coming in after me. And no matter what I do with my life, could be gone tomorrow, could change business tomorrow. I'm not 100% married to anything. But yeah, there's something really, really, really beautiful about that, and actually changing entrepreneurship into entrepreneurial support and education. So yeah, it's just an interesting one, mate, because you're talking complete sense and exactly what I was like back in the day. I'm going to smash this, I'm going to smash that, I'm going to do this competition. And now you look back and you're like, couldn't give a flying fuck about any of that. But it's because you've evolved, you've learned the self-love, you've learned to roll the sleeves up. And now we look back and we're like, I can't change people's nature. So how about I give the best of me to the 100 kids that are coming after me with the same naivety that I used to have, because there is going to be 100 of them.
Oh yeah, no doubt. And I think that's another reason why we've stayed on each other's radars for so long, because for me, self-development is massive. I love, I read so much now. I say read, it's not really reading, it's cheating, really. I listen to so many Audible books.
Don't you dare say that is cheating right now. You've been around too many people that have allowed you to second guess your own consumption and whether it's valid or not. I've got like master status on Audible because I cannot pay attention to more than a page. but I will finish off 29 hours of the history of Alexander the Great quicker than you will read half of your bullshit The Secret Book.
Yeah, 100%.
And I will actually absorb it, and I will continue to go over it again. And I'm actually consuming something that has a vibrational frequency relative to what my body is. So dude, don't you ever again, Dan, lead with some self-deprecating put down like that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm serious though. Like I listen to them hours and hours a day. Like I'm sure I've got some sort of undiagnosed ADD or ADHD, because even in order to concentrate, like to focus and really hone in on something, I have to keep my brain busy with something that I find interesting. So, for example, if I'm working and it's not a podcast or it's not a recording or something like that, I'll have it on in the background, and I can manage to, like you say, take it in and also really focus and hone in on my work, and then still be able to go back and, you know, pick through and actually retain the information. When it comes to reading, the reason why I went to Audible is the same as you. Like I have zero attention span when it comes to opening a book. I've tried.
Hold on, you've got zero attention span, but you can do 3 things at once.
Yeah, honestly, it's bizarre. I've got zero attention span when it comes to just.
I'm sure I've got some Ritalin lying around here somewhere that I'll fucking send you if you need it, bro.
Yeah, Ritalin or
you should listen to classical, mate.
Yeah, I do. I do.
Oh, right. Okay. I'll send you my chords and keys playlist. There's about 600. There's about 600 tracks in there, and it's all sound frequency, sound healing, ambient, classical, modern classical.
Yeah.
Oh, mate, that's interesting. Really interesting, actually.
And I also listen
to that.
Movie soundtracks as well in the background while I'm working, just so that I can get full on.
Oh, you really are the hero in your own story, aren't you, dude? This is what I used to do 7 years ago. I'd be walking to the gym with the Gladiator soundtrack in my headphones. I'd be like, yeah, man, I'm gonna PB 27.5 on shoulder press. Watch this. The whole gym's gonna be looking at me.
Yeah.
All you hear in my headphones is, "This is Sparta."
Oh man, yeah. I used to do that so bad, you know, have like motivational speeches on in the background before I went to the gym, you know, back in when I was like really tunnel visioned on the whole competing, you know, getting the gym, having zero energy because obviously not eating any food, you know, training beyond stupidly, and then just like, all right, cool. It's so like, it was so unhealthy, the mindset, really. Like it was so all encompassing and you know,
dude, I almost trained myself into diabetes. Like almost trained myself into, yeah, I mean, I'm still dealing with it now. Like at 35, I'm dealing with everything that I failed to look after and pummeled myself through all of my early 20s and mid 20s. And it's hilarious. I look at bodybuilders that have been doing things like taking exogenous growth hormones and just tanking themselves for the past 10, 15 years. Yeah. And I'm like, you're fucking healthier than I am. The worst I've ever done is like have Greg's baguettes and Lucozade Sport. But you realize when you do that every day for 10 years and pummel yourself in the gym on an empty stomach, you don't know anything about nutrition. Your idea of nutrition is plain chicken and broccoli, something stupid like that. Mm-hmm. Then you wind up 10 years later with all these gut issues, brain issues, dietary, emotional deprecating behavior, all this kind of stuff. So it's funny, man.
That's crazy. And it's every time I kind of speak to people outside of the industry that are kind of, you know, Gen Pop clientele that are coming to me for advice or help on food or training, like I always forget, this is going to sound horrible, but I'm going to say it anyway, how much I've developed in terms of nutrition knowledge and training. How
much you're not part of the 80 percentile anymore. But as our egos check us when that happens, our egos carry us. And a lot of the time we're like, how the hell can you not know that you're probably going to lose weight if you eat more, you fucking idiot? But then we remember that even though our entire world is now full of professionals, we are the outliers from the 80% of the world, and they're still back there existing, thinking that a pill is going to make them skinny.
Yeah. And that's kind of where I'm at now with, you know, my business. And coaching people, taking people through the online coaching process of, really trying to hone in on, getting rid of that bullshit, getting rid of the myths, getting rid of the, let's just take a pill, or, this certain type of exercise is best, and all those kind of myths that I just want to dispel and just educate, as you say, because I needed that. Unfortunately, when I first got into competing, like, I had a really old school, like, bodybuilding coach and borderline eating disordered behavior, really. No seasoning, no sauces, and there's no fucking logic behind it at all. It's just
it's an old generation who have grown up with no connection to their husbands or wives or their parents, told that they just have to slam their head into a brick wall, get a manual labor job and work. And that cultural generational mentality feeds into everything they do. Like, look at most of our parents. Most of them are either separated or divorced, or one of them is an alcoholic, or one of them feels like they've been abused. And that whole generation has just been left out by the planet because technology tells them they're not useful anymore. Their kids have all flown the nest, so the purpose that they had on life is no longer valid. The industries they once work in are in decline. So when you get people like that coach you back in the day, they carry what I but I think I've realized is generational resentment towards the world. And then they're like, if this is how hard I had it when I was 10 years old down the mine, son, this is how hard you're going to have it while I train you in Pure Gym. They're like, all right, bro, thanks, mate. Thanks. Appreciate it.
It's true. And, and I think, unfortunately, there's still kind of the remnants of that left in our industry with, even now with how
it's always going to be there, dude, though. We can't be naive to think that because we excel, everything else is. There's a big, it's not nihilism, but there's a big element of accepting that those who are going to burn are going to burn. And that the population must exist with idiots, because if it doesn't, the whole machine falls. So I've got what's called the 80-10-10 idea in my head, and I've had this for 15 years now, where if you take a population and divide it up into 10%, 80%, 10%, the 10% at the bottom are the ones that should be set on fire, like the worst of the worst, absolute retards. And this isn't in any specific arena. You can put 80-10-10 to anything you want. Then you've got the 80% in the middle, which are your normal consumers, your everyday sheep. If you tell them to jump, they'll say how high. And then you've got your 80% of overachievers at the top, which need the consumption of everybody else for them to continue overachieving, because what they overachieve at is their control and knowledge over the 80%, so they can capitalize on it. And this isn't a nihilistic. This isn't a nihilistic viewpoint. This is me eventually over the years figuring out why I was butting my heads against so many people and so many systems. Because I started to get into the top 10% in my field, and that could be emotional development, professional development, revenue, whatever field I was kind of, my ego was choosing to be better than everybody else at the time. And then you would look back on the 80%, and it was half ego of going, God, I can't believe how clueless those people are. And then it was half support of going, I'm really going to help this entire industry and I'm going to totally change it. But then we remember that we can't change it quick enough before the next shift of humans, like the next 9-to-5 shift, comes in to repopulate that 80-10-10, and then it all just resets back to itself. So there's a lot of what we do is fighting against human nature. And I think for you and coaches and people that are similar in your position, you are exposed to that 80% more than anybody is. You're exposed to the, right, here we go, here's another person. I'm going to have to go right back to what is a carb, what is a protein, stuff like that. So we almost, by picking our clientele, we almost solidify our own anxiety and demise, because we're always going to be annoyed. But with coaching, it's admitting that some people are just going to be some people, and then trying to reduce your issues, your anxieties, by elevating your clientele to more coachable people. So then what you're actually coaching falls on very receptive ears, instead of having to go right back to the start with every single client. So sorry, that's just a little 2 cents. I'm always interested in how we can remind ourselves that some shit is just supposed to be the way that it is.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
like, even in my crypto group this morning, they're all talking about Russia invading Ukraine. And I'm
Yeah.
like, cool. Do you have any idea what America and the United Kingdom have done to the rest of the world in the past thousand years? And they're like, I can't believe Russia. And I'm like, are you looking at what's going on? Are you actually looking at what's going on? If I was Russia, I'd probably be doing the exact same thing. I'd be like, yo, I'm not happy with this whole NATO presence that's around my borders right now. I need to find some way of breaking out of that and giving me a secure link to do whatever I want to do. So sorry, not to get political. I just think there's an element of getting over our naiveties around the way that things are helps you live a hell of a lot more focused and peaceful life, where your evolution and your focus and your drive for professionalism isn't tainted by being let down by other people, because you don't expect anything from other people, because they are being exactly who they were born biologically to be on the planet, if you know what I'm saying.
Yeah. I mean, that took me a long time to kind of realize myself. I had a couple of years ago, I had like an incident and I went into therapy, and my own, like, it challenged my limiting.
You had an incident, Dan. You just
did.
glazing over that, bro. Just had it.
Yeah.
This is a safe space, brother. Safe space.
Yeah. I mean, life just got difficult, and I just didn't.
You're such a professional, though, mate. I've never heard of emotional trauma being called an incident.
Yeah. I mean, it was.
I respect that.
It was just one of those situations, where for me, it wasn't depression or anxiety. I just realized that I was just really not good when it came to relationships. Like, I just wasn't.
How old were you when you had this realization?
Well, 2 years ago, so 26.
Not a bad dude. Not a bad time. Not a bad time to have it. That. I actually give my hats off to you, because that would feel like a breakdown or an uncertainty or a really big holy shit, who am I? What am I doing? And to have that at 26, you've beaten most men by 10 years.
Yeah, and it was just bizarre, really, because I think there's a lot of, I talk about it quite openly to a lot of people, really, because I do think that therapy is something that everybody should have, because I would never have said.
Agree.
Yeah, I would never have said that I struggled with anything, probably from an ego point of view, but
completely from an ego point of view.
But like, had you have said to me, do you struggle mentally? The answer to me would have been no, because the only thing that I could have referred to would have been like, well, I don't suffer with depression, and I don't really get anxious. Like, stress doesn't really, I'm so laid back. But where it did manifest, and issues from childhood and attachment issues and stuff like that, it was in my romantic relationships. It was with struggling with setting boundaries. It was those sorts of things for me that just. Setting
boundaries for them or for you. Like, we could go down a whole other rabbit hole here, because now you're in my arena. Like, don't get me wrong, entrepreneurship is my arena, but now you're in my arena, dude. And this is beautiful to have these conversations. People don't get how intrinsically linked business development and personal development are. And especially for men in their late 20s, when they're coming through to that evolution of turning 30, it's tougher for a woman to turn 30 than it is for a man, because there's a lot more expectations, there's a lot more new cycles of their life and energies and shit like this that women need to go through, and cultural and social expectations. But for a man to finally, there's a lot of humbling and little boy nature in it, where if you eventually go, holy shit, who am I? Why am I doing this? Why is this happening to me? Realizing that setting boundaries, again, if we're not setting boundaries for ourselves, especially as men, and expectations of ourselves and how we show up, then it still means we're conducting ourselves in an egoic fashion. Because to say, oh, I realized I wasn't setting boundaries, if they're not with yourself, then the only other place they can be is externally, which means you're putting your upsets to external factors instead of internal ones, if you know what I'm saying. But then I'd imagine you'd also be looking back and going, well, why am I not setting these boundaries? Am I allowing things to happen? Am I being naive? Am I playing the knight in shining armor a little bit too much? And am I saying, oh, everything's fine, this is how it's done, blah, 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 blah. When when reality kicks in, you could just do with a breakdown and a cuddle from your mum. And then you're like, oh, that's what I needed.
Yeah.
That's thank you. So I needed the maternal instinct to stop me being such an angry little boy.
Yeah. I think for me, it was both, you know, but it was bizarre for me because I came to the realization and I realized that it was only within romantic relationships. And then I realized that I basically just had a terrible view of what love was, what relation, how they should look, what they should be. And obviously that's learned behavior, isn't it? You know what? My mum and dad were divorced and I didn't really see much of my dad.
Dude, there's your generational trauma right there.
Yeah, 100%.
It's these patterns that are bred into us. We do instead of feel. And it's when you start feeling, then you start to slow down on the doing.
Yeah. I mean, my therapist, when I first started, for so long, and even now I have to fight the urge. I'm so logical and clinical in my thought process.
I bet your therapist loves you, mate. My therapist, one of my therapists is like, so Gus, you just completely outlined everything that we're talking about, gave me where it stemmed from, gave me the emotional trauma attachments, told me your trigger points, how it plays out, and then why it's all happening. And I went, yeah. And he went, so why are you still doing it? And I went, I'm not too sure. I think it's ego. Like one of my other coaches has found out that I've got this massive get out of jail free card thing where I'm like, I'm so emotionally developed and intelligent when it comes to this that I don't have to fix any of it, because to me, awareness is the get out of jail free card. You're being like, oh no, but I know what it means. Right, well, fucking fix it then. No, I don't have to. I'm aware of it. I'm allowing it to happen. And you're like, okay, right, okay.
I'll point out, I'm not laughing because it's funny. I'm laughing because
it is funny, dude.
Similarities.
It's hilarious.
Similarities though between us are just insane. Like
it's men. It's men. Yeah. It's young men. Like, dude, with me being 35, mate, I had my biggest breakdowns and subsequent breakthroughs when I was 29. And as far as I can tell, based on the amount of men that I have in my life now, is that my breakdown came about 10 years before the normal man's does. And I'm very, very grateful for that. And one of the other things with men is that, especially when we're in a professional position of quote unquote power or influence, we carry these opinions of how we're supposed to be into our business. And we carry it into our romantic relationships. We turn into these, what we think is stoic, but it's actually more manipulative and all this kind of shit, without intentionally being manipulative. And it's because, you know, like any steed or stallion, like it has to be broken before it reaches a relative potential. And I've always found that I've always said to men, I'm like, yo, your breakdown or breakthrough will most likely come at the hands of a woman, whether she knows it's coming or not. And as men, it's all that maternal instinct. It's all the comfort of being forced into a world where we have to fucking perform in every single part of our lives. And then we consume content and movies and spend time around very kind of wayward, toxic other men. And we think, oh, that he looks like the lead character of a really good movie, so I'm just going to assimilate what he does and then I'm going to do it. And I really didn't want to use the word toxic there, because toxic femininity is way more dangerous in the world just now than toxic masculinity. Just to let people listening know, entire social media is ruled by toxic femininity. And yeah, it's having those breakdowns and breakthroughs where we have to let go of the expectations of ourselves and allow ourselves to feel, allow ourselves to be, and then we actually find a real beatific masculine nature in that, because then you allow the feminine in. And even that is a huge thing that men don't get in business and in professional, is masculinity and femininity isn't man or woman. they're just two different types of energies. They're two different types of archetypes.
Mm-hmm.
So right now, I would say the conversation that we're having is a perfect balance of masculinity and femininity, because it's structured, it's guided, it's got discipline, it has purpose, but it's feminine because it's holding space, it's being compassionate, it's being aware. So yeah, really interesting. I bet everyone listening now is like, what the fuck has happened to this podcast?
Yeah.
You can feel free to cut this shit out, dude. We'll talk about macros in a second if you want.
Yeah, yeah. No,
like,
I think
I benched 105 the other day. I was quite happy with that.
No, but these are the conversations that need to be had. I think, it's still people that, again, I'm going to say it, people that aren't doing the kind of work to find themselves, men I'm talking about specifically now. It's such a, when I started, I was just like, as soon as I started talking about it, it was like a cringe. It was uncomfortable.
Yeah.
I didn't like it. It was, I didn't want to be seen as weak. I didn't want to be seen as, moany or negative. And for me, I think I struggled a lot with, again, you said, toxic, but let's talk about toxic positivity, because for me, that was a huge thing. Like
AKA forced naivety. It's
yeah.
hilarious, dude. And this industry and social media is just rife with it. Absolutely rife with it.
Yeah. Yeah. Because like, I'll give you an example. Like I remember lots of situations within my competing days where I was miserable. Like I hated training. I hated like my diet. I was miserable. And yet on my social media, I was like, yeah, like portraying
Hustle grind.
Oh yeah. Non-stop grinds. That's become a thing now with entrepreneurial, like
mate, it's so overrated. I say this to all the whole point of what I do with my guys is to help double your salary in half the time that you put into it. Mm-hmm. So sorry, carry on. I completely agree. It's so over. The hustle is.
Yeah.
Listen, the Gary V era is over. Get over it, people. He's still there and he's still making moves. But I found Gary V when he only had 42,000 subscribers, and I bought all the bullshit the same as everybody in the entrepreneurial sphere did. And it works, but it works for your apprentice years, your first 1 to 3 years of hustle grind, all this shit. After that, it's just normal. We should be letting go of these words where we think what we're doing is charging other people up, but we're not. We're giving them unrealistic expectations of how they need to conduct themselves.
Yeah. And I think, it all stems from what you actually want to achieve out of it, because like for most people, for 99% of the population, like you just don't need it. It's just unhealthy. You don't need to be working that amount for anything.
Or 80%, my dude. 80%.
There we go.
Need that because they're not supposed to hustle and grind. They're supposed to just do whatever's put in front of them. What is that very unhealthy looking can you're drinking this morning, mate?
I'm still rocking this stereotypical
on this health and well-being and business podcast.
Fitness influencer sort of back in the day everyone used to drink Monsters. I never grew out of that. So yeah,
we need to get some nootropics and some 5-HTP and some ashwagandha in your life.
Yes.
You're just fueling your ADHD, bro. You're like, okay, ADHD, I'll give you your fuel for today.
Literally. No, I love this. So let's go back to how you're coaching people now, and how you're helping people to excel within their own industries within videography.
Oh, that's a very broad question, dude. A very broad question. Probably the best and most tangible way to answer that would be to first explain why I think it's important, and then explain the process that I take somebody through. I think the kind of real world example is a good way to answer that. So the why is, for me professionally and personally, it's a perfect, meant to be natural progression of who I am as a person and an entrepreneur. Coaching and supporting has always been in my blood ever since I was a kid. But funnily enough, for the first 30 years, it was quite manipulative. It's like where I thought I had this masculinity issue we're talking about. But then turning 29, 30, my whole life changed when I Yeah, really, really let go of that knight in shining armor type bullshit and really let go of those horrible, unfair expectations I had of myself and that I was making other people pay for. So moving into early 30s, mid 30s, coming up through the industry of videography, photography, just say creativity, realizing that it was me and a select few that kind of built this entire space that all these guys are doing now. And after lockdown, coming out of lockdown with a massive chip on my shoulder, dude, being like, I'm never lifting a finger more than I have to ever make my revenue again. Like the government has shown me what it's capable of, and it's stuff I've always known. And I'm like, okay, that's fine. I'm just going to adapt to this. And realizing that that coincides perfectly with the transition I was already in of going, I really need to teach here. I've had enough of people telling me that I need to teach either. Apparently I need to either be a business coach or a life coach. And I'm like, cool. Well, if I pick one, I guarantee I'll probably end up being both because they are intrinsically linked. Well, you'll end up being both depending on how insecure your clients are, to be fair, or how much support they need. So the why is a big why for me, is that it is the next step of who I am. The why in the industry is because it's desperately needed. It's almost been irresponsible of me and a select other bunch of people to do as much as we've done for 6, 7, 8 years now and do as well as we've done and not give 1 second consideration to turn around and look back and go, maybe I should tell that kid that sleeping in his car for a £50 shoot isn't cool to do. So yeah, I think there's a massive element of responsibility that we actually have here. So if that's the why, the process is primarily fitness videography. So for me, that's my niche. The videography is a lot more valuable than the photography is. It's been shown over the years because it's content based, etc., etc. It's really information based. But the entire gig is so saturated. You know, right, that with 10.2 thousand followers, you could DM 50 videographers and I guarantee you can convince 45 of them to do it for free.
Yeah.
Just because they're fucking idiot. Just because they're young and keen and insecure and they allow themselves to be bullied, they allow themselves to be pigeonholed. But also because there's been no industry standard professional education or structure of what you should be doing as a videographer. So the process with me is I've got 3 entry levels to me and to my coaching. Number 1 is the workshops. I'm very, very proud to say they're the first and only of their kind in the world in fitness videography, dude. Like there's photography workshops and there's videography workshops, but they're almost like college style. It's like, come and learn how to press record. I'm like, nah, man, come and learn how to be a fucking demon at fitness videography specifically. And the workshops are great, mate. Like hire out some of the coolest offices you've ever seen, hire out entire CrossFit gyms just for me and the guys and gals that I bring on, pay live models to come in and we spank them around the gym for 3 hours, filming them, all these different things. And the workshops are split into 2 halves. First half is all business acumen around the round table, you know, like your proper presentations and construct seminars that you'd expect from any professional educator. And then the second half of the day, the second day is all hands-on creativity, camera work, models, blah, blah, blah. So I do my workshops. I'm very happy to say they were completely sold out through all of 2021. But it turns out there's only so many people in the world that I can coach. So I think I'm not ran out of people that can come to a workshop, but I did a lot of people. So 2022, I'm going to kind of downsize that a little bit and probably only put 2 or 3 of them on. Second is one-to-one coaching. All the coaches out there, like if you know a good educator, all you need to do is take their business model and that's mine. And except my product isn't fitness, it is entrepreneurial coaching in the creative arena. And I had a really, really good upbringing. I was lucky enough to be the kid that all the top educators in the UK picked to do their libraries, to follow them around, to do their website, all these kind of things. So I was able to kind of, I'll just use the word steal. I was able to take what they wanted and they were telling me that needs filmed, and reverse engineer that into my own products and services, and then go out into the arena and go, well, this is what the top dogs are doing. How about I just do your own version of it? So I think that's also a thing I've had a hand in and selling you all down the river and being like, why is this prick quoting me £800 for a video library that I didn't even know I needed? And it's like, well, because 6 years ago, Gus took the video libraries and did them for everybody. So yeah, that's the one-to-one coaching. That's very much what you'd expect it to be. My absolute highest level service, me integrated into your business 24/7, structured PDF content that's delivered on Zooms monthly, access to me for every single thing that an entrepreneur should need, and then plus access to like online creative groups for free. But now what I'm doing is I'm finally taking the jump that everybody's been telling me to do, and doing my own members website. So even that is like the Train by JP or the Physique Collective or the Callum Raystrick business model, except you're not learning how to bodybuild, you're learning how to run a creative business. Exact same, dude. The only thing with me is I can't decide if I'm grumpy or smart. It's like it's one of the two. It's probably the first one, to be fair. And that I can't be arsed doing 19 different courses and all this kind of crap and moderating it so much. I don't want to do the cheesy or learn how to be a filmmaker in 14 days. It's actually nothing to do with creativity. All my one-to-one guys, and they know the last thing they ever bring to me is creative. I'm like, dude, no, you don't get it. You all have the exact same videos. It's business acumen that none of you have. So let's level up, let's mature, and let's actually conduct ourselves in a professional manner instead of just running around being a hobbyist and trying to attach a price tag to it. So the library is going to start off for the initial period, me and business only. Everything that I coach, everything that I deliver, real-time Q&As, real-time client inquiries, how we break them down, how we deal with them, step-by-step guides on how to structure your shoots, client inquiries, client issues, like literally I'm going to be taking everything that I do with my one-to-one, creating content on it and saying, right guys, this is an inquiry we had 7 hours ago. This is very common in the business. This is how you deal with it. Instead of me just sitting there going, oh, well, back in my day, I did this, so you should do this. I'm like, I'm going to fucking show you how this plays out. And then eventually with the library, I'll bring in other contributors, bring in creative guys, pay them for their time, for their commitment, whatever I need to do, and make sure that I'm consciously building a more all-in-one hub for creators that starts to bring in creativity, sound design, color grading, editing, stuff like this. It's not a focus. I think that saying that you want to educate is great, but how you educate is more important. And I'm sick of seeing idiots on Instagram going, hi guys, today I'm going to show you what's in my camera bag. And I'm like, no one, like, the issue is I would love to say no one gives a fuck, but they do. And it's such a shame that they give a fuck, because they're buying into some videographer that probably only charges £300 a video, and he's getting high on his own supply and treating Instagram like it's a creative YouTube channel. And I'm like, why don't you show us your invoices instead? I've actually commented on people's stuff and I'm going, great color grading, buddy. I was really impressed to watch that for 25 minutes. Could you help me out? Could you send me your invoices or screenshot them? Because I want to know what your business is doing. What do you mean? And I'm like, exactly. Shut the fuck up. Stop treating people to just be more naive. Like the worst kind of discrediting we can give to people is thinking that they don't earn or they don't deserve a realistic educational platform. If you want to get high on your own supply, go and do it on YouTube. But if you're actually hanging around where all the creators are and you're putting out all this creative manifestation, motivational content, you're just selling them pipe dreams, man. But we could go into the fact that most creators are under 25. There's all these different factors that kind of allow them to be very sellable, if you know what I'm saying. So if you take 100 creators and give them a choice between the RGL entrepreneurship library and the latest color grading course from somebody, you can guarantee 90 of them will pick the color grading course. And I'm like, oh, okay, that's fine, because you're doing what you're supposed to do for who you are. I'll try my best to influence an industry to bring more of a professional sense of what you should be doing. And hopefully that'll kind of, it'll sway you more towards me so I can look after you a bit better. And if I look after one of you, then you look after the next one, then he looks after the next one. And before you know it, the clients get more of an industry understanding of how much they should be paying creators and how they should be treating them. And then before you know it, the whole game elevates and everybody's a hell of a lot happier.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head, really. You know, systems, procedures, business acumen, you know, even if you talk about like my experience within the personal training sector, it's terrible, you know, like there's zero education on, like, they give you this qualification, which is as good as like a piece of paper, literally, that just says personal trainer on. I remember when I did my course years ago, you're talking, what, 10, 11 years ago now, I did my PT course. Yeah. Yeah. What a different industry that was back then, like, you know. But I think it's just, it needs to, it's great to see people like yourself and, you know, other people, educators in the industry, helping with that sort of thing, because you cannot run a business. You just cannot run a business without how to deal with people, leads, you know, the systems and procedures. You know, how do you bill people? How do you keep clients? Yeah, okay, cool. We can make it nice and simple and clickbaity and say, get them great results or deliver good content, you know, but what does that mean? You know, how do you look after someone? How do you take them from A to B? How do you make sure that they come and think of, you know, people like yourself when it comes to education, or any of your clients when it comes to video within the fitness sector? Like, how do you make yourself stand out, and how do you publicize that and educate and not just, yeah, I get my clients great results?
See, one of the best things, I really appreciate what you're saying, mate. Thank you. I feel very healthily validated, and that's a nice feel. I'm human, just like anyone. I love getting validated, and there's always that little insecure part of me that's like, am I on the right path? Am I doing blah blah blah? So a professional like yourself who does exactly what I do, except in a different arena, to hear that is I really appreciate that, dude. And I think to add to that, one of the best ways, or one of the best things that I've ever said to, like, I catch myself sometimes and I'm like, oh, that was a really good quoting representation of what you stand for and how well you take these guys at their business. And one of the best ones was the amount of guys that have come to me and they're like, I want to find out how to get new clients. And I'm like, I've got no idea how to get you new clients. Sorry, bro. I have got no idea. And they're like, what do you mean? And I'm like, I'm not a marketing expert. I've got no idea about click funnels and pixel tracking and all this bullshit. And they're like, right, so what do you do? And I'm like, well, before I answer that, let me ask you this. Why would I find you 100 new clients when you don't know what you're doing with the ones you already have? And they're like, oh. So what I've been able to do is come into creators' businesses and help them kind of, yeah, we'll talk figures because figures are tangible. That's what we all know. And take a creator that's maybe doing, I don't know, 15K, something like that, 20K a year, maybe, and help them almost double their income straight away from on a monthly basis, just by revisiting what they're already doing in business and showing them how undervalued they are with the clients that they already have. And it's beautiful because I get my guys to send out their price change emails. And remember, Dan, we don't use the word increase, we use the word change. Yes. And they'll email out their clients, and like, this is part of me throwing them under the bus. This is part of me throwing them into the trenches and going, you're not going to like the conversations you have after you send this email, but this is part of your education, my dude. And you'll thank me 1 year away going, I'm so glad I learned how to speak to people in my first month of coaching and didn't learn how to get new clients until my 6th month of coaching. And there was one beautiful client that I've got, a guy called Liam Rigby, who's on Instagram as Monkey Tennis. One of the coolest names I've ever. It's amazing, mate. Honestly, I applaud him on it regularly. And he had some of the most beautiful reactions come back. He probably sent out about 15 emails or DMs to his clients and saying, hey there, just to let you know, there's going to be a slight price change in my business. I've got new tech coming in, new coaching, and bringing a lot more to the table. So I want to ensure that my revenue matches that. My prices will be changing from £250 a shoot to 400, whatever it happened to be. And out of 15 clients, every single one of them replied going, yeah, cool, no problem. Which already tells you that you're dealing with relative professionals and it's you that's the kid. And you're worried about them shooting you down, when actually what they're knowing is that you're a kid and they're taking advantage of you and they're just waiting for the day that you put your prices up. But one specifically emailed them back, didn't even say yes or no. The only word that the email had was, I'm glad to see that business coach is paying off for you. I'll see you on Tuesday. That was it. And I was like, dude, you have arrived. Not me, this client, you have arrived.
Yeah.
And yeah, these conversations are never as bad as they think they're going to be. There was something I was going to say there that was really good, but I can't remember what it was because I was thinking about the next 3 things that I was going to deliver. Maybe it'll come to me.
Do you know how going back to my own journey, I with therapy, that was one thing that I've worked on so much over the last 2 years. Like having to actually listen because my brain is constantly like, oh, I've got an idea, or I've got something.
Here's what I'm going to say next.
Yeah. And
yeah, I get that.
I'd constantly, and then I'd suddenly catch myself and be like, oh, I have no idea what that person just said. Like, I'm really sorry. Even though I was so invested and interested in the conversation, I was too focused, because I know that if I don't attach to that thought, the next one's in, and all of a sudden I've forgotten what that thought is, because now the next one's in, the conversation's moved, and I've forgotten, and now I'm not listening to you, and I just get caught all the time. So,
where do you live, dude? Where do you live?
Near Birmingham.
Near Birmingham, dude. Oh shit, it's tonight. You are going to come to my men's circle.
Yeah.
I don't know. Have you got me on personal Instagram or just professional?
Professional, I believe.
So if you just type in RGL to Instagram, both of mine pop up first. My men's circle that I go to is every 2 weeks in Little Eaton, which is Little Eaton's obviously between kind of Birmingham and Derby, like mostly on the Derby side. So from you, I guarantee it would take you an hour, if not a little bit less, to get there. I've already brought a couple of my creators. There's some of my guys that come from North Birmingham that I've got. I brought guys down from Glasgow. I've got guys that come in from Manchester. I obviously go down there from Leeds. But the men's circle is one of my very good friends, Daniel Tyndall, who also used to be my holistic and kind of spiritual coach. He puts a men's circle on every 2 weeks where he caps the numbers at, I think it's like 7 or 8, but it's built on his land, which is in a kind of forest and a quarry. And you'll see the videos and the posts on my personal Instagram. And it is simply a space that men offer other men to come and exist, to talk, to share, to be present, to hold space for other men. You don't have to share. You don't have to do anything whatsoever. But it's one of the most impactful things that a man could ever do in their life. And it is the simple therapy of checking in with other men. In a space that has nothing to do with business, has nothing to do with the gym. The structure of the circle is Daniel welcomes everybody in, blesses the circle, talks about kind of energies and archetypes and who is existing with us while we're here, moves into a meditation. Then after that, opens the circle for anyone that wants to share. I rarely share, but it's just because of the way that I am. It's not that I can't share. It's that's not why I'm there. I'm there to be. And I do need to get over my own servitude. I do need to get over my own belief that I exist in a sense of servitude for other people. But whoever shares, it could be anything from business, finance, health, sexual health, relationships, fatherhood, whatever is going on with someone's life. And it's not even half the time, it's not even bad. I usually share the great things that are going on and then use it as a little bit of a kind of case study to say to other men, yo, this is what I've found and how this works. And then if anybody wants advice, they can ask for it. They're not given it unless they specifically ask for it. And then Daniel will move into kind of teachings on maybe Buddhism, some different kind of things that he wants to bring to the circle. Nothing that is too left or right, just very much awareness of new spiritualities or thoughts and religions, this kind of thing. And then finishes off with a meditation as well. But it's we're usually there. It starts at 7 p.m. and we usually don't get away till about 10, half 10. And for me, I kid you not, dude, I kid you not, it is the only time in my life, and I mean this, it's the only time in my entire life that I have ever forgot that I own a mobile phone.
Yeah.
Dude, I leave the circle and I'm like, oh, and then I feel this square thing in my pocket and I'm like, what the fuck is that? And I'm like, oh shit, it's an iPhone 13 Pro. Cool, I better check that. And sure enough, you've got 13 WhatsApps, 14 Instagrams, 5 emails. And you're like, okay, back to reality. That's fine. But you leave with a piece of everybody that was at the circle with you. Mm-hmm. So, mate, I think there is actually, there might be 1 or 2 seats available for tonight if you fancy coming along. I think the tickets for it are like 15 quid. Anybody that's listening that is near Derby, that is a man, sorry. Well, I know I'm not sorry because we do need these things as well. It's exceptional to be there. The only people that don't come religiously are the ones that are so busy with like crypto or business empires that they just can't make it. But I find that it's the same people every circle plus an extra 1 or 2 newcomers, and then they become the same people every circle. So yeah, you can check it out on my personal Instagram, and it's there for anybody as well.
Yeah, I mean it sounds right up my street. Like I love that sort of stuff. I've got a lot more into spirituality, I think, over the last year and a half, especially since like my own therapy journey and meditation as well. That's one of the only times, honestly, like I've always been fascinated by it, but meditation is one of the only times that my brain relaxes so much when I meditate that I get, you've had a head massage and like you get that sort of like tingle, sort of like relaxation sort of sensation. And my brain is just genuinely empty, and it's just the best feeling. It only happens twice or 2 times that I can think of, when I'm meditating or if I've done yoga. That's the only time that my brain turns off.
The other things I'd give to you to add to what you're doing is when you're meditating, you can take it a bunch of different ways. I meditate on what's called a Shakti mat. And the Shakti mat, I've got the full body one, and it's basically got like thousands of little spikes on it, and you lie on top of it when you're meditating. And the whole acupressure theory behind it, as you know, knowing biology, is when you're putting this pressure onto your skin, it releases a lot more blood and it releases inflammation, and it sends blood to the area, which is why, when you rub yourself, you go red, because there's a lot more blood there. Or when you poke yourself with something sharp like acupuncture, you'll go red. So when you meditate on a Shakti mat, you need to do it naked to get the full effect, and then just load yourself up with blankets. If you're lying down, you are welded to the ground. Like the grounding that happens when you do this during meditation, you will love it. If that's how your brain feels when you meditate, you can feel the energy go through your fingers and into the earth, dude. So strange. And then the other thing is, try adding in, to further the meditative state, try adding in sound healing or frequency to your bedtime. So when you sleep, I've always got, for years now, I've got sound healing or megahertz frequency music on my phone next to my bed, and I fall asleep to that. And then the last thing, dude, apart from something like the men's circle, have you ever tried flotation therapy?
I haven't. I've heard of it, but I haven't.
It'll change your fucking life. I had, before lockdown, I had an amazing business plan for building the UK's #1 brand in flotation therapy. Guarantee I could have done it. But after lockdown, I was like, do I really want to go into brick and mortar? Do I really want to start again that badly? And I went, no, let's just continue with the creativity and your investments in crypto and stuff like that, and actually be smart. But flotation therapy is, I had, can I tell you about the one breakthrough I had with flotation therapy? And that'll give you, and this is something that I think it's great for personal trainers to offer to their clients as well. Because not only has it got a host of physical benefits, but one of the biggest barriers between you and getting somebody in shape is their fucking brain. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Not their body, not their, it's their brain. That is the biggest issue. So with flotation therapy, it's a tank that's about the size of a Mini Cooper, and it's filled with body temperature water that is loaded with Epsom salts. So it's like the Dead Sea, like it's impossible to sink. You can only float because of how thick and viscous the water becomes. The water's heated to the body's temperature. So when you're lying there, your brain can't tell where the water starts and your skin does. So you're in like a suspended animation. When you eventually get into a really relaxed state, you're human, you're in a fucking a bucket of water. But when you get into the meditative state, it all starts to come together as one big ball of energy within the tank. The tank it's not sealed. You can have it open if you want, but the room is soundproof and lightproof, and the tank is soundproof and lightproof. And you've also got earplugs in. So flotation therapy is the only time in your entire existence on the planet that you will escape every single sense and force that is on your body. So smell, touch, sight, sound, and gravity, because you have no gravity. You're buoyant. So it's like you're lying there floating through space. The first few times that I did flotation therapy, when I came out, I felt like I had the shit kicked out of me. But it's because it's the only time, like physio, when you get physio, your body fights against the physio. Mm-hmm. When in reality, what I found is the biggest breakthroughs, and it's quite poetic that it's physical we're talking about because it's emotional as well. The biggest breakthroughs you have are when you let go, not when you hold on. So the no gravity allows your body to reset back to what it's supposed to be at. So all these kinks in your shoulders, your spine separates because there's no longer any vertical gravity on your spine. That's another reason why everybody should do decline decompressions at least once or twice a week for spine health. So anyway, the one session I had that really changed my life with flotation therapy was my third session. And I used to go in there and repeat words into my head. Like I was trying to achieve things in life. I was trying to achieve more peace and acceptance. So I used to repeat these words in my head, and sure enough, it worked. I came out of one flotation therapy session, finished with my girlfriend, stopped speaking to a few friends straight away that day. And I was like, holy shit, I was accepting that they were pricks. And instead of trying to change them, I was like, okay, I can accept that I need to let you go because this isn't healthy. So it was my third session that I had. And by this time I was getting accustomed to the 1 hour sessions. After the first 5 minutes, I was gone. I was like in another universe and started to have a kind of out of body experience where I could feel my awareness coming out of the top of my head, like my entire body was duplicated, but I didn't go off into the stratosphere. I moved only about 4 or 5 inches away from me. So it's almost as if I was at the top of my head looking down over my forehead at me floating around in the tank. So this went on for I don't know, probably 10, 15 minutes. And then I started to asphyxiate. And I don't know if my tongue was rolling into the back of my mouth because I was so relaxed, or if my heart rate had slowed down so much that my breathing couldn't match it. So I felt like I was suffocating. And it felt like every time my heart was beating, that a big, big ball of just warm, whatever it is, was beating into my heart. And it was shooting all the way through my body. Every time I had a heartbeat, it was like an elephant's foot hitting the ground like 40 feet away. Just this big boom, boom, every time my heart was beating. And then add that on to the fact that I think I'm now suffocating. So the first thing that went into my brain was anxiety. The first thought I had was, I'm about to die. And then the second thing that came into my mind straight away was, I'm okay with that. And then as soon as I accepted that I might die, I started breathing normally. I started coming back to my kind of senses a little bit. And then I was like, oh, that was interesting. And then just relaxed for the rest of the session. So, but by no means is this some spiritual bullshit where it's like, oh yeah, I'll happily die. I'm a human. I'm a normal human. I'm like, don't stand on my trainers. They're brand new. I want a Range Rover and I don't want to die. I am a normal human being. But in that split second of my life, I was only faced with one thing. I'm about to die. That's all that was in my head because I couldn't breathe. I was choking or I was asphyxiating. I don't know what was happening. But for where I was emotionally in the tank, the only thought that I had after that was, I'm okay with that. And I said that in my own head. First thing I said was, I'm about to die. Second thing I said was, I'm okay with that. And mate, life is now the same after that one therapy session.
That's mad. I'm definitely going to check that out because that sounds like
so you're coming to the circle and you're doing meditation therapy. Been a good podcast, bro. Been a good podcast.
Honestly, mate, I appreciate you coming on. I've loved it. I've loved this catch up. I think it's been a long time coming.
Overdue, man.
Yeah, and if you're happy to come back on, I'd love to chat more things: spirituality, crypto, anything. You know, I think there's a lot that, like I said, I just want this podcast now to be about conversations, things that people aren't necessarily aware about, or, you know, things that aren't being spoken about as much, or things that are, but we're just talking about it in a different way. And yeah, I think I've loved today. I mean, I hope you have, and I hope the people listening
absolutely did. Absolutely.
I mean, I when we were planning this episode, I know we were talking about what we wanted to talk about and stuff, and this is exactly how I wanted the episode to be.
Good.
This is how I wanted every episode of the podcast to be, because I don't want it to be formal Q&A, like, you know, what do you do? Who are you? You know, what are your goals? What, like, blah. Yeah, that's good, but it's mundane, you know, with the greatest respect to people. It's the same format every single time. But I want to pick at the brains of my guests. You know, I want to get them talking about things that they might not necessarily talk about, you know, within a normal sort of Q&A form thing. And I think that we've really done that today. I mean, if we look at the topics we've spoken about today, it's gone off on tangents, which I love, because that's me. You know, that's me. Like I like
Captain Tangent.
Yeah, I start going off in something, and all of a sudden I'm like, how have we got here? And I think that makes it much more interesting for people. So I appreciate your time.
Dude, I appreciate you. Thank you.
Yeah. I'll have a look at that for the men's circle group. Do you want to drop any information so that people can find it if they are interested?
Yeah. You can find the men's circle details. And again, this isn't my circle. This is a friend of mine. It's just, I truly believe in getting these kind of words out to as many people as possible. The men's circle is held in Little Eaton every second Wednesday evening at 7 p.m. And to find more details on it, you can check out Make Ready Mindset on Instagram, or Make Ready Daniel. That's the name of his company. Which is funny because he's never been in the military and he's quite a spiritual soul. So Make Ready is a little bit like, yeah, fucking make ready, man. I'm going to make you ready for this. But it fits. So yeah, Make Ready Mindset, Make Ready Daniel. My personal Instagram, just type in RGL. Like, I've got loads of details on it there. Everything's linked, blah, blah, blah. As for flotation therapy, 1,000%, I think people should get that in. It's like I was saying to you before the podcast, I'm always, not in an insecure sense, but in a realistic sense, I'm conscious of my value. I'm like, what is my purpose here? What am I here to do? Because people tune in, people watch and consume, because overly, the 80 percentile, there's a need to get, there's something that I need to get from what I'm consuming. So even for me, it takes a little time for me to let go of that expectation of myself and remind myself, Gus, the best things that you listen to and are involved in are things that you don't go to get from, you go to be and exist with them. So remember, Gus, maybe somebody doesn't want to get something from you in a podcast. Maybe they just want to hold the space, open up subjects, And if somebody is emotionally receptive, they will actually gain that kind of energy transaction from the podcast. So yeah, before we started, I was like, shit, how do I talk about what your listeners are going to be interested in? And obviously you're saying that this is absolutely perfect. But the last thing I would probably say on it is emotional development is something that really needs to be viewed as intrinsically linked to professional development. Your trench work at the start of businesses and dieting and training, bodybuilding, whatever it happens to be, is always it's the most naive part of your journey, but it is the most foundational. Roll your sleeves up and get stuck in. I think that when the apprenticeship stage for us is over, imagine you want to train for 10 years. Your first 2 to 3 years are your apprenticeship stage, and you'll be so motivated, all this kind of stuff. But then eventually we need to come in with an element of acceptance and a lot more peace around what we're doing. And I think that peace is a level of awareness that helps us unlock the next stage. So how I relate personal development to business is that I can take people even further because I'm now more capable of being with them in their businesses instead of just talking to them about their businesses. So I'm hoping that everything that we've talked today, people are conscious enough to say, do you know what? That was really fucking interesting. I can take a lot of that for myself as a person, and my business is impacted by who I am as a person. So I'm getting professional development just from people talking about emotional development. So yeah, dude, absolute pleasure, man. Here for the next one, 100%.
Yeah, sure. And that resonates with me. I think that it's something that I'm so passionate about, men's emotional development, personal development, professional development. Like, it's something that I've worked on so hard myself. And I think that, people like yourselves that are really touting for it and pushing it and helping people through that. That's awesome. I mean, that's something that I'm going to look at doing in the next few years, I think, going into the coaching sort of sector. Because I think, there's so much that I needed help with back in the day. When I first started online coaching, it was emails, like spreadsheets. It was terrible. And then eventually like WhatsApp became a thing, and just the development of that as well. So systems and procedures. And I think we should definitely touch base again in the future, talk about either crypto, more systems, go a bit more niche. But yeah, thank you so much for coming on, mate.
Dude, thank you. My last quote to end is, remember, if you take an idiot and motivate them, now you've got a motivated idiot.
That's the episode title.
That is, dude. That is. Right, man. Thank you.
No, my pleasure. Thank you for coming on.